Hello and welcome to our office. This episode marks the start of our third series of Sustainably Wed, and we are so glad that you're joining us for another one here. The rest of our episodes in this series are actually going to be geared towards couples. We're going to talk with couples who have recently been married about their wedding experience, what they learned throughout the planning process, what they would maybe do differently, and what stories they might share with couples who are going to go through this next. And we're really hoping that that's going to be useful for couples who are going to start their wedding planning process really soon. But before we get into that, we wanted to speak directly to vendors and business owners about supporting sustainable weddings. How can we as vendors help our clients make good decisions? How do we as vendors make a difference in the industry, even if we already are doing a lot of sustainable things in our own business? Now, before we begin, I do want to acknowledge that we are coming to you from our office, which stands on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanich First Nations, and we're so grateful to be here. So let's dive in. So, in our opinion, after doing 2 seasons of this show, the biggest challenge that we face in the wedding industry isn't finding alternative products, it isn't being able to swap out things for greener alternatives, it isn't changing our menus, and it isn't managing or mitigating waste. Those things are all important, but as vendors, we actually already have the tools to do all those things. We already know how to make sustainable weddings possible, and we have the tools we need to do that. So what is the big problem? Why can't we make sustainable weddings happen right now? Well, in our opinion, to reshape the industry, we need to reimagine the industry. The challenge we face is helping people understand that this industry, these events and weddings in general, can be sustainable. It's a problem of imagination rather than of solutions.
This is true in virtually every industry. For example, to address climate change in engineering, we need to imagine buildings differently. To address climate change in urban planning, we need to imagine cities differently. And to address climate change in food systems, we need to imagine eating differently. And so to address climate change in the wedding industry, we need to imagine weddings differently. And as vendors, it's up to us to help our clients with that.
So what's the incentive to make change? Why should we do this? Well, one of the things that we learned as we were putting together our other Sustainably Wed episodes is that, while vendors and businesses can make a lot of change on their own, couples need to buy into this process as well. The value proposition needs to align for both vendors and couples in order to create a sustainable wedding. Both parties need to buy into this process for a sustainable wedding to actually happen. And what we've realized is that for vendors, that value proposition makes a lot of sense. But for couples, it's a little bit different. For most businesses, doing business in a more sustainable way can be more cost-effective in the long run, lead to better client engagement and retention, allow your business to be more resilient in the face of constantly changing global events, and lead to better, more fulfilling weddings and events. So we aren't actually going to spend a lot of time on that value proposition for businesses because it actually makes a lot of sense. And in many cases, being more sustainable in your business is actually a competitive edge. But what about for clients? Well, for clients, the value proposition is actually a little bit less clear. They are certain it will be more expensive to go with green or sustainable options. They don't have very much information about where to start. They feel their event is only one day, so don't really consider the impact to be that big. And they don't want to be told that they have to restrict their vision. So for clients planning a wedding, a sustainable event might not even cross their mind. But if it does, there are a lot of barriers in place to prevent them from really buying into this process.
So for people getting married, weddings are often seen as an opportunity to go all out, only one day, something they might regret not spending more on, a celebration where it's important to make absolutely everyone happy. And I'm sure that we've heard weddings referred to as the absolute very best day of your life. Not that there's any pressure at all there. Our biggest realization through all of this is that to make meaningful change in the wedding industry, we need to help clients celebrate differently. We need them to see the importance of having sustainable events. We need to move them away from a mindset of excess and towards a prioritization of what's most important to them. We need them to see sustainable events not only as achievable, but as easy, rewarding, more personal, and yes, sometimes even less expensive. We need clients to see sustainable weddings more as the norm rather than the exception. And so that's what we want to talk about today. How do we have conversations with clients about sustainability, both leading up to, at, and after their wedding? Because we can't just go up to a client and say, your wedding is wasteful. That's not going to be a productive way to make change. But we also can't go up to a client in the week before their wedding and say, hey, have you thought about making this more sustainable? Because it's just too late by then. Likewise, we also can't say to a client at the very beginning of their planning process, oh, don't forget to make sustainable choices, because that isn't enough to help them through their entire planning journey. And what we've learned over time is that if we want to support clients to have sustainable celebrations, we need to support them in their entire wedding planning journey, not just at the beginning or the middle or the end.
And so that's really what we want to talk about today here, is supporting clients throughout that entire wedding planning journey. But before we do that, we need to think a little bit about what that wedding journey is. So let's take a look at the typical wedding planning journey. It might look something like this. First, clients paint a mental picture of what a wedding should look like. This comes long before they're engaged, and it can include so many things. We build our mental image of a wedding through social media, say Instagram or TikTok. Pinterest is a big one. But we also build it through things like sitcoms or movies, visiting friends' weddings, or family stories or family weddings. There's a lot that goes into making our mental picture of what a wedding actually should look like. Second, clients get engaged and they start quickly on the first steps. They set a date, they begin to write down the price and the vision and the budget. They start reading all the resources, which includes checklists, books, all the blog posts they can find. They really are trying to figure out how to plan this wedding because most clients haven't planned a wedding before. And so they're really looking for expert advice on how to do this. Third, they're going to book their primary vendors. And these are the ones that book maybe a year or two in advance. They're kind of core vendors who they need to book right away. This might be their venue, maybe it's their photographer, we hope it's their videographer. It's those core vendors who they need to book right away. Fourth, they're onto logistics. The invites are out, the seating chart starts coming together, they start deciding on menus, and they begin to realize just how much work this whole thing is. Fifth, it's panic time. About a month or two before the wedding, they're making 100 place settings. They're doing all the handmade things. They're assembling some sort of arbor. They're fielding questions from guests, from family, all of those different things. And they're beginning to panic just a little bit, maybe a lot. And really, at this point, they're just wishing the wedding was over. Finally, it's wedding day. They can forget all those things. It's too late now. The wedding day is happening. And lastly, the wedding is over. They can celebrate that, they can relax, they can enjoy, but maybe they're also posting photos to social media. They're leaving reviews for their vendors. They're selling the things that they bought to use at the wedding, returning rentals, and really they're sharing the story of their wedding. So let's walk through these steps together and see how we as vendors might support couples throughout this entire wedding planning journey.
Our first step is to catch clients before they're actively planning a wedding, which means we need to showcase sustainability in the industry so that this becomes a part of the mental picture of what events and weddings look like. Now, styled shoots are a really good way to do this. This shoot by members of Emerald Hour, a sustainable wedding collective based in the Pacific Northwest, is a great example of that. They planned a styled shoot to showcase how beautiful a sustainable wedding can be. And now all of the companies involved have photos and examples that they can post to showcase an amazing sustainable wedding that definitely isn't lacking or missing out on anything. While a styled shoot is a great way to showcase sustainable weddings, it's definitely a lot of work and commitment, as I'm sure if you've done one before you understand, and you definitely don't have to go that far if you're wanting to showcase sustainable weddings online. There are definitely things that you can do, some that are obvious and some maybe a little less obvious. For example, if you're a florist making a post, say, about a bouquet, make sure you mention in the description what month those flowers bloom in your region, or go even a bit further and talk about some of the great local native flowers that people might not have heard of. That way, clients start to learn which flowers might be growing in the month they're getting married, and which ones grow well in your specific area. If you're a caterer, maybe showcase a vegetarian entree or a local ingredient you'd like to work with to showcase that food can be seasonal, local, and have a low carbon footprint. Our friends at Mensch Catering recently posted this image of cattail shoots, a new ingredient that they had locally foraged, and how excited they were to use it in their upcoming dishes. Industry events are also a great way to set the bar high, but in our experience, we've also seen some that really miss the mark, with walls full of balloons, single-use plastic cups, and that sort of thing. And while we're talking about single-use plastic, one of the things that comes up often are compostable or biodegradable plastics. We often see these as an alternative to regular plastics, whether it's in balloons, cups at the bar, or single-use cutlery. But unfortunately, it's not commonly known that these biodegradable or compostable plastics are not well regulated and usually require a specialized facility to actually be composted. Most regions, at least in North America, don't actually have a facility that they can use to compost these items. And so if they do end up in the compost, they're going to be filtered out and sent to the landfill instead. So just make sure when you're making these swaps that you're doing a bit of research, asking some questions and making sure that it is an actual, a good swap rather than one that's going to make more harm than good.
So that's all about giving clients the right mindset and the right mental picture about what a wedding can look like. But let's take a look at the next steps now, which is the first steps along the journey clients take when they get engaged, say, and they're starting to look more tangibly at how to plan a wedding. When clients enter the first steps of planning, they're often looking for the resources they can get. Checklists, budget samples, and other guides that can help them figure out how to actually plan a wedding. They often need guidance, structure, and support at this phase. Most clients haven't done this before, so they're looking for expert advice. So what kind of resources might be valuable? Well, everything. Checklists, reels that you make on Instagram, posts, budget samples, anything you can put out there that is tangible that these clients who are starting on their first steps can take with them throughout their planning process. Our friends at Mensch Catering and at the Inn at Laurel Point, which is a venue in Victoria, have great low-carbon menus that help couples make eco-friendly choices. And these menus are something that they showcase and share online, so couples can start to imagine what a more sustainable wedding meal might look like, even if they don't hire that venue or that caterer. But it's not just for caterers. If you're a decorator, for example, a blog post on 10 ways to avoid using single-use plastics in your decor would be a really good resource. Maybe you're a photographer and a blog post on alternatives to plastic confetti that still look good on film would be really awesome. Or maybe you're a makeup artist who can do some behind-the-scenes reels of you using eco-friendly products. Any of these things are great because they're tangible tips that clients can take with them, and they help them make decisions as they go throughout their planning process. Another really good example of this comes from Megan at Twisted Bramble, which is a sustainable wedding floral designer in Seattle, who provides a free downloadable sustainability guide. Resources like this are usually really good for your brand. We've never heard of a case where you put up a sustainability guide and you lose clients because of it. But if you are worried about looking a little too green or a little too eco, you don't have to make it super obvious that it's a sustainability guide. Maybe it's just the top 10 things you can rent instead of buying that help save you money. Well, that's great because it helps clients save money, but it's also a more sustainable tip as well. So there are ways around this that are more subtle than others. So if it doesn't fit with your current branding, it's still okay. You can still provide those resources. Another good way to provide resources and inspiration to couples is through sustainability-themed wedding shows. In the UK, Magpie Weddings and Events hosts an eco-wedding show for couples who love the planet as much as they love each other. Super cute tagline. This is an amazing way to showcase what vendors are doing, what you could do in your own wedding, and the vendors that are able to make that happen for you. There's also another great one happening in Seattle by the folks at Emerald Hour. And depending on where you are in the world, there might be one happening close to you. If there isn't one happening close to you, this could be a good opportunity to start one. You also don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can borrow from other vendors and sustainable wedding resources, lean on others for resources, and check in with accounts like ours to validate any of your research. For example, a resource we send out to our clients all the time is the Wedding Footprint Calculator from Less Stuff, More Meaning, a group in Australia. It's a great tool that helps couples calculate and understand the footprint of their event. Less Stuff also has a great Mindfully Wed guide, as well as many other resources that you can direct couples to. So you don't have to create this stuff from scratch.
Okay, so let's talk about step 3, when clients start to book their major vendors. Often when we first hear from clients, they're overwhelmed with decisions. They're working through a checklist of things they think they need, and when we ask them about their priorities or goals for their wedding, it's something they haven't even really thought about at all. We have an opportunity in that very initial meeting with our clients, a year or maybe even more out from their wedding, to help them set intentions and to make sustainability a priority. So in that first meeting with a couple, think about asking them, what are your goals for your wedding? What are your priorities? What are your shared values as a couple? This doesn't need to be super pushy, it's more about helping them think about how they want their wedding to feel first, rather than diving right into colors and details. It's about stopping the momentum towards having everything just because that's what a wedding looks like, and instead moves the conversation towards what's most important to the couple. If that feels a bit too deep for you and you're not really that comfortable going into that much depth with your couples, you could ask them something a little bit more specific, like, I know that, sustainable choices are important to you in your day-to-day life. How can we bring that into your wedding planning? Beth Kramer, a wedding planner from Portland, has a great section in her book, Modern Etiquette Wedding Planner, where she talks about setting a vision for your marriage rather than your wedding, and includes a shared values worksheet as well as a wedding vision worksheet. Creating something like this for your couples can help them to figure out their priorities and keep those in mind while they're planning their wedding.
As clients continue their wedding planning journey, the next thing that they often need are vendor recommendations. And that brings us into our next phase here along their wedding planning journey. Often they'll book one or two vendors and then they rely on those people to connect them with others. This is a great opportunity to help your client make good decisions and connect them with other like-minded businesses. So if a client is asking for recommendations, make sure you have a list of vendors who you recommend and that you know what their sustainability practices are so that you can tell clients about them and feel good recommending other businesses. Ask questions of the businesses around you to build a good list. And by reaching out, you might learn something new or you might prompt someone to take action. Emerald Hour has a great member directory of Pacific Northwest vendors that are inspiring greener weddings, while the Sustainable Weddings Alliance in the UK has an awesome list of members in their area. And you might have something similar wherever you are. On the flip side, if you're a wedding vendor, make sure that you're really clear about what you're doing in terms of sustainability so that your colleagues know. What's on your website? Make your practices and values clear so that other businesses can connect with you. When we put our values on our website, we started getting more and better inquiries from businesses who wanted to work with us. And in our small business filming, they really wanted to work only with us. They don't get quotes anymore from other companies because they know that we align with their values, and that's really awesome. So be open and honest about what you're doing in your own work, and that will help you connect with other vendors who are doing similar things. Certifications are another good way to communicate your values and to connect with like-minded vendors. They connect us to businesses across our province, but also give us a badge that our clients might not understand, but other businesses definitely do. Certifications also help you validate what you're doing and make it easier to prove that you're on the right track to yourself and to others. In BC, we have this awesome program called BC Green Business. They provide certification, guidance, and support to businesses wanting to make their businesses more sustainable. But these aren't the only things. Networking groups, Instagram conversations, just casual chats with other vendors, these are all great ways to learn what other people are doing and what you could do in your own business.
So as clients get closer to the wedding, they often enter panic mode. And I'm sure we've all experienced clients who are at this point, or maybe even experienced it yourself if you've been married. And often this is the, fear that you're not doing enough or that you've missed something, essentially wedding planning FOMO. Even if they aren't full on panicking, they usually need quick, easy, and practical solutions at this point in the process. And that's where we as vendors come in with tools and solutions. So we'll start off here with an example of our own offering. If clients offset the carbon footprint of their wedding, they get a free additional hour of coverage. It's a win-win-win, to borrow a Michael Scott phrase, because clients often discover they need an extra hour of coverage at this point, and it's often cheaper for them to do this than to add an extra hour. It's a win for the environment. Offsets aren't a perfect solution, but they're definitely a start. And it's a win for us, because to be honest, we often stay an extra hour if things are running late anyway. It also gives clients an opportunity to stop at this point in their wedding planning process and put their choices into a carbon footprint calculator. Although at this point in the process, that might not, they might not have much room to change things. There might be a bit of wiggle room, and it's at least a good thing for them to stop and look at. It's also important to remind your clients to stick to their values while they're panicking, rather than just making it work no matter what. It can be so easy to fall into the mindset of being able to do anything your client wants, no matter what. We often think about our work in weddings as making people's dreams come true. But sometimes what they think they want isn't actually what they want or need, and it's better for us and them if we're able to help gently guide them. Another great example comes from Twisted Bramble, whom we mentioned earlier. Megan always creates foam-free designs. It's just how she does business. By doing this, she ensures that couples who work with her are making a sustainable choice by default. If you build in sustainable practices like this into the core of your business, when clients come to you with a panic at the last minute, you won't be tempted to try and just make it work for them in a way that isn't sustainable. This is where those early conversations about clients' values and their goals are so important. At this point in the process, you can go back and say, does this fit with your values? If not, scrap it.
So after panic mode, we finally get to the wedding day, and this is great news for couples and for vendors. And really what it means is that there isn't much more that clients can do in terms of sustainability. The decisions have been made, the plan is in motion, and we're moving now. So at this point, it really comes down to vendors. And what we have to do in this phase as we get to wedding day is walk the talk. And this loops back to our first step, because we need to show sustainable practices in action. And in order to do that, we need to make it happen on a wedding day. The choices we make and we choose to share on that day matter. We were very fortunate to be able to buy an electric vehicle for our business. So that's one way we can walk the talk on a wedding day. We can get places with a really low carbon footprint. And when we need 2 vehicles, we use a car share program. So that's great for us. But it doesn't have to be a big purchase in order to make a difference. Let's say you're taking an Instagram story while you're on the wedding day and you have a coffee cup. Well, if that's a disposable coffee cup, that's one thing. You're kind of normalizing that. But if it's a reusable one, well, that's great. We're walking the talk there. We're showing a sustainable practice in action. So it can be as small as your behind the scenes reels on the day. These all make a difference. So these are choices that our clients just can't make for us. How we travel, what we drink out of, but they do make a difference on the wedding day. And a little bit of preparation before the season starts can really help you make these choices easy so that when you get into panic mode, as we all do on a wedding day as vendors, you just have a kit with you there with sustainable solutions already. You don't have to revert to, say, single-use plastics. You've done the planning beforehand and you've got sustainable solutions on the day so that when it comes to it, you're ready. Training and resources are also available and out there to help you with your business and to help make these choices and decisions easy for you. And professional development in this area is another good way to walk the talk. The Sustainable Wedding Alliance out of the UK does a really good carbon literacy training program. Definitely check that out. And Emerald Hour has a really great green swaps guide, which is an easy way to figure out how you can make changes really quickly in your business. Another way that we've found to be accountable to ourselves and others is by creating an annual report. In this annual report, which we make available on our website, we calculate our carbon footprint, we break it out in terms of energy use, transportation, and more, and we're really transparent about our sustainability efforts over the year. This isn't something that a lot of small businesses or entrepreneurs do, but we found that it's a really great way to help ourselves be accountable to the things that we say we're going to do.
So when the wedding day is over, we need to be thinking about what we're going to share from the day. And if we think back to where couples are getting inspiration from their weddings, it's from friends and family, but mostly from Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok, other social media. And as wedding vendors, we create most of that content. So when you go to post a photo or video from a wedding day, consider whether it supports sustainable weddings. Does it showcase the kind of weddings that we want to see? Does it need any clarification, like these flowers are beautiful, but they're only in season in March? We also need our clients to be sustainable wedding advocates in order to change the industry. So if you share a post from their day about sustainable choices, tag them in it. Hopefully they'll share with their own networks, which will expand your reach and continue to make it seem more normal. And if their process with you as a sustainable vendor was great and they refer you to their friends and family, you get more clients, those clients have more sustainable weddings, and we continue to push the industry in the right direction. Another win-win-win.
So why do we want to disrupt the planning process? Why do we want to do all this work? Why do we want to encourage clients to have more sustainable, more intentional weddings? Won't they just spend less, or maybe they'll find another vendor who can do the things that you say you won't do? That is a real fear, but that's why we need to tell a really good story about creating sustainable weddings. We need to tell clients about the impact of weddings on the environment, but we also need to explain and show them how much more they'll enjoy intentional, thoughtful, and mindful celebrations. And we need to build trust with our clients so that they know when we're offering realistic solutions and good advice, and when other people are maybe just greenwashing.
And if we manage to do all of these things, we found that clients communicate a more clear vision of their celebration. So you don't have to create a rustic, modern, boho chic, elegant, black tie barn wedding ever again. They trust the process. They give you more creative control to do your thing. They prioritize creating lasting memories and worry less about the tiny details. They form lasting connections with vendors and recommend them to others. They understand the significance of their day and come from a place of gratitude, not expectation. They reduce their negative impact and their carbon footprint. They spread the word, and they carry those learnings into the rest of their lives.
So our question to you then, as wedding vendors or businesses or event professionals, is what can you add at each step along the way? How can you support clients throughout their entire wedding planning process? Maybe you already support clients with a couple of resources at 1 or 2 steps along this journey. But what can you add at all the other steps to ensure that clients have the resources they need to make sustainable decisions throughout their wedding planning journey? So if you're a vendor, check out the other resources that we've created, all our other videos and our conversations about sustainability in the wedding industry, and think about how you might add that to your own process. But if you're a wedding couple who's about to get married, stay tuned, we've got some more episodes on the way.